Hello, Husky and Husky parents. This is Christopher Chiakulas, a post-secondary counselor. The following recording that you're about to watch was a live Zoom that was given to parents and guardians on Tuesday, December 6, 2022. The topic was scholarships, and originally this was meant to be for senior parents and guardians, but we ended up having parents from a variety of grade levels. So no matter what grade level your students are in, hopefully you can get some information about how scholarships work and our scholarship process here at Hersey. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me after this, and we can help your students try to find that free money for college. All right, good morning again, everyone. Welcome to another version of Learn A.L.A.H-tte, which is different topics from student services about your student's life at Hersey or life after Hersey, hence the La in latte. I'm Christopher Chiakulas, the post-secondary counselor, and today I'm joined by...
I'm Shannon Ann. I'm the College and Career Center assistant.
All right. And Shannon's entering like month 4, I think, right now on the job. And so she is really starting to dive into the scholarships as well. As mentioned in the email, and if those of you signed up later on the Google form, this presentation was originally meant just for senior parents, because that's where most of our scholarships are for. They're mostly for seniors. However, accidentally got sent out to everyone, but that's not a problem. There's a lot, hopefully, that you can gain from this. Most of the questions that were submitted in advance were just looking for general information, which is what we hope to provide here really quickly in the next half hour or so. And so if you did submit a question in advance, if you're on this meeting so far, we've either tried to directly address it or indirectly through the presentation as well. If you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to save them to the end to see if we cover it, that might be best. At 7:45, we plan to kind of sign off, but we'll kind of see where we're at for sure. Mrs. Ann will pop out because we are doing one for the students, for the seniors. So let's get started. I want to first back up really quickly before we talk about scholarships specifically, and just really touch very, very shortly about financial aid in general. Sometimes this is confusing. People hear financial aid, they feel like it's just like need-based money, but the definition of financial aid really covers 4 things: grants, scholarships, which we're going to talk about today, work study, and federal loans. And so when your student applies for financial aid, they are applying for any of these 4 types of aid. And in the end, the only aid they may qualify for is a loan, but that it still is a type of aid. Grants and scholarships are the free money they don't have to pay back. Work study is need-based, and loans, again, everyone who fills out the FAFSA will get a federal loan at the least. So I know that's not ideal, and you're like, great, wow, but nonetheless, it is a type of financial aid. These types of aid are start with the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, which is a graduation requirement, and senior parents hopefully know this and have been hearing all the information by now. But this is why it's really suggested to do the FAFSA, because you don't want your student to miss out on any of these types of aid. There are some scholarships that do require the FAFSA, or the college or organization wants to see the FAFSA to see if your student meets the requirement for their scholarship. So just keep that in mind as we go, that this is just one of the types of financial aid. If you are the parent of a junior, there will be a district-wide junior financial aid presentation on March 9th. So stay tuned for that. All right, so scholarships. So a lot of you are here because you know that it's kind of an overwhelming process, and there's where do I look and what are they for? A lot of the questions we got were, do you have scholarships for this major or this language or this? And the answer, I guess, is yes, but they're all over the place, right? So there are scholarships out there for languages, for financial need, for not financial need, for specific majors, for specific ethnicities and genders going into certain majors. There are ones for students with really strong academic records, maybe ones with learning disabilities. There are local ones that might depend on where you live, where you went to school, what youth sports programs you did growing up. There are faith-based ones. There are hardship-based ones. There are ones on how tall you are. That's one of the favorite ones, the height one. If you're like a male over 6'3" or female over 5'10", something like that. There are those all kinds of scholarships, and they're all over the place. So it is going to take some looking around, some searching, and we're going to talk about some ways that hopefully we can help streamline that process for your students. But nonetheless, there are ones out there for all types. So your first question may be, well, where do we begin? Where do we start to look? So first, one of the ways that I like to do it is to break it down into the 3 types of scholarships that you and your students might come across. Institutional scholarships that come from the colleges directly, national scholarships that are, organizations that are offering scholarships to students across the country, and local scholarships, the ones that are, just are around here, different groups. And we'll talk about each of these individually. But as you see the tip, your student is going to have to do some work to search for all of these. It can be a lot of work. It can be a daunting process. If you're a student as a senior, they just got done with all these college applications and now they're going through more applications. It's like application overload, but they're trying to get somebody to give them hundreds or thousands of free dollars. So they're going to have to, kind of put some work into it. So let's get into the first one, institutional scholarships. These are the ones that are going to come directly from the colleges. So seniors, when they apply to many schools, they may be offered a scholarship directly, like with their admission. So those are the easiest ones, right? They filled out the regular application. Loyola replies to them, congratulations, you've been admitted, and offered $15,000 a year scholarship for over the 4 years or each of the 4 years. So that's great. That's an easy one. That's where a lot of the big dollars come, especially from the private schools. Public schools, depending on the school, may not give as much money, but usually they're not as expensive at the start. Oftentimes, with admission, students will be offered an additional scholarship application. So I know University of Alabama would offer $5,000 with admission, but now here's another application to try to access more of our institutional scholarships. And then that's another deadline in the application the students need to fill out. Oftentimes there are specific program-specific scholarships. So when they get into the College of Business or College of Engineering, there might be scholarships for that, or if they do an honors college or honors program. So that might be, again, another application. And then a lot of colleges will, after admission, offer scholarship tryouts or interviews, maybe with alumni, or competitions where they'll have students come to campus, maybe do a group project, do an essay, do a speech, do a video, do something, and then they'll award additional scholarships from there. So there's a lot of different ways that these institutions give scholarships, but often it's the highest amount of money that students will receive. So it's really important that students pay attention to these requirements and deadlines. As a parent, you can help your student, do the research and see, what's the process at the school. These are questions maybe to ask at college fairs. How does your merit scholarships work? Are they requiring the test score? Are they done holistically? Is there deadlines? How does it work? And so that's like where we usually say the students should really focus when they get to be seniors. If you have a student younger than a senior, this is why we beg and plead that students apply by priority deadlines, early action priority deadlines, because that's also usually the scholarship, the priority deadline as well. When students wait to apply till January, February, March, they may have missed these deadlines and for scholarships, and that would obviously be a shame. A couple of things that you can do is to check right at the college's website. So if you go, let's say, for example, to Marquette, and you can look at their website, they have a variety of in-house scholarships, full tuition scholarships, special scholarships, and then they even have some other scholarships that you might want to consider as well. So students considering certain colleges may want to go directly to that college's website and see what scholarships they have Are they automatic with admission, or are they like an additional scholarship? What are the requirements to apply, and so on and so forth. Students looking at Harper also has a lot of levels and types of scholarships as well. And they even do external scholarships, which is what we call like the local scholarships. And so it's always great to look at the college's financial aid and scholarship websites, because you might find not just information for the specific school, but for scholarships in general. So a question that came in was, when a student gets a merit-based scholarship, is it possible to negotiate for a larger amount? And the quick answer is sure, why not, right? It doesn't hurt to ask. Yeah, show me the money. You can ask and negotiate for anything. I mean, if they say no, then your student is, still has whatever they were offered initially. And okay, you tried and it didn't work, but that's okay. The longer answer, though, is with any financial aid appeal or negotiation request, the more concrete evidence that you're available to support an increase, the higher the chances, right? So if you're like, thanks for the $10,000 a year, can you please give me 15? Like, why? Like, what is the basis of you asking? The college has a process for awarding merit-based scholarships, whether it's a straight GPA and test score, whether it's a holistic review. So they've gone through the process to determine what your student has earned. So why are they going to offer you, more money? Is there some other additional information that that they don't have? So if it's for the institution directly, some things that the student could send in are maybe their GPA went up. That's why we say like senior year grades matter too, because if their GPA goes up after this semester, they could go back to a Loyola maybe and say, hey, my GPA is now above some threshold. Can you bump me up? If they get a higher test score, if their test score was initially considered and they took it again for some reason, now the new score is in, they could send that. Maybe there's a new accomplishment that that they earned. They were all state, or they were now elected a captain of something or whatever. They could try that and see. If they are negotiating like their financial aid letter, then that is something that they're going to want to do to a comparable institution. So, if I'm trying to decide between DePaul and Loyola, I can't just compare scholarship amounts. I want to look at the overall cost, right? And so I can't compare, Harvey Mudd College in California, which is $80,000 a year, with Eastern Illinois University. Those aren't comparable. I can't say, well, Eastern's only $5,000. It doesn't work that way, right? So we have some tips in the financial aid menu of our college application guide, which is on our website. And so definitely check that out if you're appealing financial aid in general. But it doesn't hurt to ask, but you just want to make sure you go in with a good plan and some good evidence to support why you're asking for more. So hopefully that answered that question. The next level of scholarships are national scholarships, and there's a lot of different websites out there. There's apps you can get on your phone. You can do searches through Naviance and Career Cruising, which all our students have accounts with. The bottom line here is you don't ever want to pay for a list, right? What's the point? You're trying to find free money for college. Why would I pay to get a list of scholarships? It doesn't make sense. There's lots of free ones out there. With national scholarships, these are often the most competitive because the competition pool is the whole country, right? So sometimes students will be like, oh, like this scholarship's $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, and they're going to spend a lot of time on it, and it's just more competitive, right? So, and oftentimes the students are filling out this profile. And really, these organizations, these websites are just selling data to other organizations. So your student might end up with lots of spam and no actual scholarship offers. So really, I would encourage students to think about how much time, if any, they want to dedicate to applying to national scholarships. Again, not that nobody ever wins them. It's just, you could spend 10 hours going for one $20,000 scholarship, or 10 hours, applying to 10 $2,000 scholarships, and you might have a better chance, that way with the local ones. However, At this point, some of the national scholarships may be the only option for some students who are not seniors. Like I said at the beginning, most of our local scholarships are for seniors and higher. So if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior student, there are some national scholarships they could start looking at right now. One thing I forgot to add on here last minute is that if you follow Life After Hersey on Instagram and Twitter especially, I often retweet or share a lot of these national scholarships for students less than seniors. So I would highly recommend, if you want like a way to kind of keep track, or when you see the ones that I'm sharing, follow those sites yourself or have your students follow them so that they can see that. So the national scholarships, again, the competition pool is a little bit tougher. So kind of gauge how much time is being spent. But if you're not a senior, this might be your only option at this point. Sorry, I'm just looking at a couple of the chats here real quick. So one of the questions was, if you get an external scholarship, does it affect the amount that's offered by the university's internal scholarships or institutional scholarship that comes directly? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes if the student is getting money from outside, it could possibly decrease the amount that the school is giving. In the end, the net amount is still going to be the same. It just kind of depends where the money is coming from. So in other cases, it doesn't. And if you go over the amount you owe, you might get money back. So it really depends. So that's a great question as a parent, to ask the school, if my student gets more scholarship money than the total cost, which of course is a great problem to have. Will they get money back? Will you just take less from yours? How does that work? And then another question, if seniors told that the school hasn't decided because they want first semester grades. So if they applied to the school or to the scholarship before the deadline, they should still be eligible for the scholarship. This is the question, if I'm understanding it. Even if they're not admitted yet. So if a school says scholarship deadline is December 1st, student applies by December 1st, they fill out the scholarship application if there's one by December 1st, but the school says, you know what, we want to wait till January to see your grades and then admit you, they should still be eligible for a scholarship because they applied by that time. Again, another great question to ask the school directly, because that could be a college specific process. So local scholarships, and again, these are usually only available to seniors, and they come from all over the place. And they are include but are not limited to Hersey specifically. We have scholarships that are only for Hersey seniors. And so definitely the best chances, because you've now shrunk your pool to 500 students or less. We have ones that are only offered to District 214 students. We have a District 214 scholarship application. It's part of the Apply 214. Your student might have gone in there to apply for dual credit and things like that. Within the 214 application, I believe there are 214 in general scholarships, and then there are also Hersey specific ones. That application is not open yet. It's not going to be open until second semester, and Shannon will send that out to students and parents. Again, this is just for seniors, but those are the ones that you really want to look at. And it's surprising if you see in the bottom there that how many students don't do those. Those are your best chance. You're just competing against the people in the building sometimes. So really pay attention to those. Students should look at their employer. If they have a job, they may have one. You should look at your employer. Oftentimes your employer might be offering scholarships if you have a senior. A lot of the schools that around here, Thomas and Euclid specifically, I know have offered scholarships in the past. If you're an alum from there, check your community groups, check your Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, park districts, places of worship. All of those places oftentimes offer scholarships. So sometimes those are shared with us here. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just put out in other communications that you might get at your house or personally. And so, pay attention to that and make sure you let your student know. So what do we do with the ones that come here to our school? We put them in two places really for all of you on our scholarship website, which is connected to our application guide, which is a senior thing that seniors hopefully know about by now, or under the College and Career website under quick links. So let's take a look at this real fast. And I can put it in the chat if you want to have it in general. But this is our scholarship website, and you can see I have it broken down by institutional, local, and national scholarships, a lot of other tips, a lot of other things here. But the local scholarships we put in two places, in Naviance and in a Google spreadsheet. So this is the Google spreadsheet. And this is the easiest for parents to kind of look at because it's just right here on the website. And this is something that Shannon is constantly looking at, editing it. When new ones come in, she updates it. If there's old ones, she moves them to a different tab. But you can use the find menu, the find option to search for keywords and things like that. But you can see different scholarships that are currently open and the deadline, information, websites, all that kind of stuff. Expired ones are ones that we've already offered this year that are done. And then the past scholarship lists are either ones that we have not updated yet because we just haven't gotten to them, or they haven't sent them yet. And sometimes we keep them on here just so students can kind of see if they're going to come up again or not. So kind of keep an eye, heads up. Oh, like this one might not come out till May, so let me kind of keep an eye out for it. The other place for students, a great place to go is in Naviance. Hold on a second. I lost my demo student. And so we do enter them in both places. So we enter them twice. When students log in to Naviance, they can go to colleges and scholarships search, and they can see again, should be all the same ones. But what's nice in here is that they can filter by their demographics, and you can search for other grades and see if they're on here by, their academics should populate. Again, this is a demo student, by interests, by requirements, and things like that. And we try to tag them as accurately as possible, so that they could only get a list of scholarships that are applicable to them. Otherwise, again, you're looking at a huge potential list of a ton of them that don't apply. So then this way it'll filter them out for them. So again, this is a service that we provide as the best we can to students and parents as they come in, and they come in, mail, email, they come in from all kinds of places, and we try to enter as many of them as we can into these places for students and parents to go to. Once Shannon gets a batch of local scholarships, for seniors, she will usually send an email saying, hey, just heads up, we've got these new ones to check out. If there's deadlines coming up for some, she may say, don't forget about these deadlines that are coming up. And so this is kind of the place for local scholarships to really go to. So some of the questions that kind of came in: do you have a list of scholarships for students with disabilities, Mount Prospect residents who speak languages, have certain majors, kind of like I said at the beginning? So yes and no. We don't have like specific lists for all of those specific, topics. But again, you can search the Google sheet or try a filter or look through there and kind of see. In some cases, Google is a great, option too. Google scholarships for students with ADHD and see what comes up as well. We don't have every scholarship that's ever out there, but we try our best to do, especially local ones and things that are shared with us directly. So it's really important, and this is like a slide especially we harp on for students, to check those emails from Mrs. Ann with new and updated scholarships. Figure out if they're applicable to them or not, look them up in Naviance, see what the requirements are. So with 6 minutes left or so, I'm going to quickly go through just some of the logistics that you can remind your students that how it's really important to read the application carefully to determine what they need. Just like the college application, they can be different requirements, different processes, depending on who it's coming from. It can be more labor intensive, than others. So these are some common requirements. So yes, again, it can be a lot, but like I said before, people are offering your student, hundreds or thousands of dollars of free money. So there's going to be an application. We still get some on paper, especially from more of the local, smaller, little groups. They send the paper application. If it's a paper application, we will note it in Naviance and on the Google sheet that it's a paper form. And if we can link it somehow to a Google Drive where they can download it, we will. If not, we have a section out in the College and Career Center to pick up a paper copy. Transcript and letters of rec, I'll touch on a little bit more in a second. It's really great if your student has a resume or activity list. I talked to all the juniors current seniors last May when they were junior and said, this summer, make a resume. So that way, when you get these applications that say, list all your activities, you just say, see attached, and it's easy. Some did, some didn't. So you may want to help your student or encourage them to do a resume. I can help with that. We have resources on our website for that too. Essays, there's all kinds of essays. Suggestion is to keep them all somewhere, and hopefully you can just tweak them depending on the scholarship and what the prompt is, and we can help review those with students if they need help. And sometimes they do need the FAFSA, or if it's a need-based scholarship, sometimes they ask for your taxes, a copy of your taxes, and that's up to you if you want to share that information with them or not. So again, some are online, some are paper. It's important to read the eligibility and what are they looking for and what's required before the student spends a bunch of time working on it. If it's not, if they're not eligible for it, if they didn't have a parent, if they didn't, experience the death of a parent in this case, they're not going to apply for this, right? But if they did and they meet these other requirements, then they're going to want to move forward and gather all this information. I always suggest that students type applications if and when possible, instead of handwriting it. But sometimes you don't have a choice. It's just a paper application. But really important, again, to make sure everything is attached. Some things will be uploaded on a website, on a Google form. Others, they do want the hard copies. Some of them still want them to be physically mailed to a place. We had a workshop the other day with seniors, and a lot of them didn't know what a postmark date was. They knew what the post office was and what regular mail was, but they didn't know what the postmark date meant. So we were explaining, it's got to be postmarked by this date. And so again, if students have trouble assembling all this stuff or whatever, let us know. We'll see what we can do. Really quickly, and again, this is probably more for seniors if they're applying to local scholarships. If they need a transcript, unofficial transcripts for anyone can be downloaded from Infinite Campus. If they need an official transcript, that has to either be a hard copy that's sealed from our registrar or sent directly from the school. Our seniors have parchment accounts. If you're not a senior, you're not going to have one. So I would just talk to Mrs. Schwitzenberg, our registrar, about transcript specifics, or have them come talk to Shannon about that as well. Letters of rec, if they're required, we ask that students give their teacher or counselor at least 3 weeks notice. The tricky thing with scholarships is with all the different ways that they could be sent. A lot of staff members do not have students. They don't want to hand the letter directly to the student. Especially if it's not sealed up. And so if a scholarship requires a student to upload a letter through their website, and there's no way to, do that with the letter without the teacher giving it to them, and the teacher doesn't want to, have them come talk to us, and we can contact the organization and see if there's a way we can email it separately or send it another way. But this is just some logistics of it. Again, asking 3 weeks in advance is really the important part, because we want to make sure that the teachers and staff have enough time to write the letter. So we tell students apply for as many as they're qualified for, pay attention to the deadlines, understand the conditions of an award. So what happens if you do get it? Do you have to maintain a certain GPA? Do you have to keep doing a certain number of service hours? Do you have to send in a copy of your schedule, your college schedule each year to get the check to prove that you enrolled? Watch out for scams. Again, anything that's asking you to pay for something is probably not legit. And we also always suggest, if they do win one, to write a thank you note to the organization. If that organization's local and they have a breakfast or something where they want to honor the student and award them the scholarship, hopefully they will go to that event and represent themselves and your family and the school, nicely. So I cannot promise after all of this that your student will do all this work and they'll actually get any scholarships, right? It's like the lottery. You can't win if you don't play. But unlike the lottery, maybe students do get scholarships. We always use the example, you put 2 hours of work into a $500 scholarship. If you get it, you just made $250 an hour. If not, it's just kind of how it is. I kind of equate it to the job search. I know I've spent hours in the past writing resumes, cover letters, filling out applications, going on interviews, and then you don't get the job. That's just kind of how, scholarships work sometimes too. But if you don't play, you don't win. If you don't apply, you're not going to get the job. You're not going to get the scholarship. So just really quick to prove that students do win scholarships. These are some articles from the past and press releases of students who have won local awards. And so students, especially, again, the Hersey ones, obviously somebody wins those. And if they apply, they apply. So that's kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. And Mrs. Ann is just making sure that any students are coming right now. If you do have questions, feel free to email us.